Alright, we are recording, and first things first, NGC 6530, which, I mean, that's just an awesome image, in my opinion. It's really, really beautiful, and it's also why I have the pillow boxing, because I did not want to crop it down vertically to have it fit 16 by 9. It's like, no, just I have to scale it down, and for that reason, definitely look in the description for the link to the original from the ESA Hubble telescope site. Sometimes it's easier to find them on that than the NASA version. But yeah, definitely find it. Look at the original. It's beautiful. Anyway, as the title of this video says, I'm finally going to start talking about space stations. And I think a good place to start with space stations is, well, when you're building them, where they actually start, which is the docks. Which is probably not surprising if you start to think about how would I build a space station. You'd start with the docks. You'd start with the thing that the ships are able to connect to let people on, move materials in and out. It makes perfect sense. But there's other reasons why I want to focus on the docks, because the docks are probably one of the, if not the most important part of any space station. I should also explain a little bit more about them, which I got my notes. I'm already going out of order, but it all ties together. Every space station is to some degree modular. To what degree is a question. In A Letter from Catherine, the space station that you start on is very, very modular. Like, this thing can be extended indefinitely. But other space stations, even though they are still built by modules, there's a dock. The docks are a module. There's going to be a power module, a command module. There would be like a commerce module that would have a lot of storefronts and such. A living space module with apartments and such. Even a module that you would use that for either like general use rooms or just that's where you have your schools, because in Letter from Catherine, you actually start in that one. That's where it all begins. All those modules are to some degree self-contained, but for a normal space station, not the one featured in that book, basically once those are all assembled, you're done. That's it. You're not attaching anything more to that. So yes, as I said, though, they all have some degree of self-containment in that they have their own environmental systems, which would be like heating and atmosphere reprocessing, artificial gravity, which is just always going to be the case. If you want gravity, you need to have that in the system. But also power storage, some kind of power system. The docks, however, will be different, especially there. So while like a general purpose rooms, you can just have power storage there. If you lose main power, you don't need power generation there. Like if you have enough to just run it, you can keep things running. A battery backup, you're probably good there. The docks, no, because the docks are far too important. For that, it has its own power generation that is completely separate from the rest of the space station. But it is enough to power the entire space station if needed. But its first priority is the docks. Because that is, the point of contact with the outside world. Or rather, the rest of the galaxy, I guess I should say. But it's also, if there's an emergency, that's where everyone goes. Because it is a complete space station unto itself, essentially. So I like using fire as the example. If there's a fire in one of the other modules, where are you going to go? Well, going to another module makes sense, but if it's a, no, you actually need to like potentially get ready to leave, you go to the docks, because that's the only way you can be able to get out, actually leave the space station itself, but it is designed for this. So it has massive airlock doors that can be shut so that nothing can get in, though part of that is, it's not just two doors, so it's an airlock. It's also two doors, so that if somebody's in the middle of one, it's not going to slam that shut on the person. It'll slam shut the other one. It's more about that than the airlock thing, but it would allow the airlocks. So let me just try to get back to my notes. Actually, what I was just saying, even though I went a little bit off, it was like instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, I went 1, 3, 2, 4, essentially. So yeah, and then the nuclear... Oh yeah, that's right. So, yes, as I said, they have their own power generation. What kind? It's nuclear fission, not fusion. This is actually an important point in here because it makes the most sense. As I talked about in the power generation video I did however long ago, nuclear fission is better than nuclear fusion in many cases because it's spontaneous. Fusion is stimulated. You have to cause the event, cause nuclear fusion to occur for it to occur. Nuclear fission, it just happens. We control the rate of it, not the event itself. Although in theory you can do something to really, really slow it down to effectively be nothing, but no, it's mainly just the rate. So this emergency kind of thing, that's what the docks partially serve it as. You gotta have it be nuclear fission. But there's another reason for this. And I'm not sure if I would be able to very quickly find it, but I did see a news press release, science press release, many years ago now. It was talking about how nuclear fission gives us something actually very valuable, but a lot of people don't think of it. That's the nuclear waste. It is actually useful. And technically some of it you could reprocess to be fuel again, but yeah, I'm going to try to read what I actually wrote in here, because I kind of like what I wrote there. I may use it in another place, but yeah, the radio... Oop, I just realized a small typo in here. And I'm just OCD enough, I gotta fix it. Yeah, waste is so often a poor, even bad word because it suggests something is without use, and then no one thinks of use for these items. So that press release that I just mentioned was they were like, well, what can we use this for? You know, like they were actually thinking it's waste, but maybe it's not. What they figured out was that if you had like a warehouse storing some of this nuclear waste, you could just run a conveyor belt through there and have products on the conveyor belt go by. Why would you do that? Why are you wanting to irradiate? Well, you're actually exactly wanting to irradiate. What they proposed was running things like food through this, because the radiation almost certainly will not linger on the food, but it will obliterate bacteria on there. Like take some sort of meat product, like a ground beef or something, or even better cuts of meat, steak. Run it through there. It's like that stuff, if it's not refrigerated, it doesn't necessarily last long. And you know that if you ever lost power and have some in your refrigerator. But this, it's like, well, it'll kill all the bacteria. But the fibers of the meat, the thing they're actually eating, that won't be disrupted by that. And it also, so long as the radiation doesn't linger there, and it's not many radiations that necessarily do that, it'll be completely safe to eat. In fact, it will be safer to eat because the bacteria has been removed. They were talking about, as I recall, but this has been used, it would allow you to have something that may have a shelf life of days, have a shelf life of weeks. That's transformative. That kind of change would be transformative. For many things, including in real life. It's kind of disappointing that this never went anywhere, but a lot of people are just trained, programmed even, that radiation is bad. And it's like, well, it's all around us. We actually do use it and rely on it a lot, but yeah, sometimes you have to educate people and they don't want to be educated. Anyhow, in my Catherine verse, because I can have my people be a bit more intelligent there, or just people being like, well, we're just not going to tell them. The docks actually, because they have the nuclear fission power sources there, they do have some nuclear waste, and they keep some there intentionally all the time to run things through. They're docks. They're constantly going to be having goods move in and out, assuming it's something that can survive the radiation, because there would be some materials, like I could believe some medicines, no, we don't want to run that through radiation. Leave it as is. But other things like the food, other products that just, aren't going to care about radiation, like furniture and such, books potentially, just run it through. Run it through the chamber with all the radiation from the waste. Run it through anyway, because you're killing bacteria there, that if it's food, great, it's now safer, it's going to last longer. But for other things, it might be, what if there was some sort of bacteria on the planet, some sort of pandemic that was starting there? Well, now it's like this gets unloaded, goes straight through, and then people start touching it. So now, at most, it's the pilot that's exposed. It's not all of his cargo, because you've eradicated whatever was on there. So yeah, it's just as like a standard operating procedure, you could really stop the spread of a lot of diseases by doing that. In my Catherine verse, to be clear. Yeah, I can actually wrap this up very shortly with this final point, that I actually did think about diseases and such, even talked about it in the very first chapter of a letter from Catherine. And that's going to be part of another video, though, when I get to cover quarter stations, as I call them, which basically is just how do people handle, how do they react to the possibility of diseases spreading, because hey, you got to explore. That means you do get exposed to things. So how does that handle? Well, that will be for a different video. So I shall see you next time. That other video might not be the next one, though. We'll see. We'll see what I decide is next. Goodbye.